Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us today. This is the MCPAWS Kitten Training and Information Session, just in case you didn't know where you were virtually. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Looks like we have, oh, and then, okay. So we've got 20 people in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have a lovely PowerPoint presentation for you with lots of cute foster kitten pictures. So I'm going to share my screen. This one.
Okay, got it. Ooh.
Kit's thinking about it for a second. Okay, can everybody see that all right? Megan, you have to speak up because I'm muted.
Okay. Yep, it's showing up for me now.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I just wanted to say thanks again for everybody for taking the time out to come and chat with us about fostering kittens. This is such an incredibly important program for MCPAWS. We put over 100 kittens in foster last year. They went through the foster program. Is that right, Megan? Or
yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot of kittens that go through foster homes every single year. And so this is incredibly important for us and really does save, oh, okay. Fred can hear nothing. Fred, you might want to try to leave and come back in if that will help. Sometimes that does help. Okay, so the kitten foster program is incredibly important for us. We really do see an incredible amount of tiny kittens that come through every year, and so being able to move them out of the shelter and into foster homes it's a lifesaver. It's a lifesaver for us as the people who work at the shelter, and it is a lifesaver literally for those kittens that you all help us take care of. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Megan, I added a few slides here. I wanted to just briefly chat and begin with fostering now and acknowledging the current situation that we are in with COVID-19 and how that might affect everything. Let me ask a really quick question. Are you seeing the Zoom chat windows as well? Or can you see my screen fully? Megan, are you seeing like the group chat window?
Yeah, I've got mine pulled up.
No, but are you seeing mine like over the presentation?
No, I just see the presentation.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so yeah, just a quick note about fostering in the time of COVID-19, right? There were a couple little dogs that made it into this presentation for these slides. So this was our little parvo puppy that we had a couple years ago. So I thought it was an appropriate photograph. But really, I just wanted to take a moment. I just was able to watch a webinar yesterday from a national animal welfare organization. There's a lot of research that is going on. So that is really trying to determine what is happening with companion animals and the virus. Is it affecting companion animals? And I know that there's a lot of questions out there about this, and there's still a lot of questions out there about this. But what we do know right now is that the biggest, most concerning risk absolutely remains between human to human contact. So what I'm not hearing from the greater community is that there are a lot of concerns coming from concerns regarding animals and humans interacting with each other in regards to the virus, right? We also know that for right now, animals are really not considered what we call fomites, which means like they're not carriers of the virus, like on their fur, on their actual body, so that we can then touch the animal, and then, you know, it can then, the virus can then be
For those of
transferred
you who
to
are
us.
not online and just
So,
joining via
that's
phone,
good news, right? The virus
there
itself
will be
is
a
not
PowerPoint
necessarily
presentation
hardy
that
in
goes
the
along
environment.
with this.
I know we hear a lot about the fact that you
And
can't.
So if you
that the
want to
virus
have
can live on
that
certain
given to you
surfaces
after
for
the fact,
hours or
just let me
days,
know and we can email it to you. We can
and
make that available.
that is
to
true,
anybody
and
who
that
wants
is
it.
concerning. And
But
something
hopefully
to
you all will
be,
have the kitten
aware
foster
of, but
training
when you're talking about hardy in the
manual or
environment,
handbook.
it's certainly not
that
something. what we're
myself,
seeing
Megan,
is
and
that it's
Krista
not
have
something
all
that
been
would
working
be akin
on
to something like the
for a while.
parvovirus,
It's
which
definitely a living
remain
document, but
active.
I think that
and
it
in
has
the
tons and tons
environment
of resources
for,
in
you know,
there, like
months,
links.
even,
If you should
even
really
up
be
to
looking
a
at it
year or more.
electronically.
So,
And
so
there's
that
just
is very good.
there's a million
right?
resources in there.
So
Links
you're not
to
going to be
YouTube
touching an
videos
animal and
to
having a
demonstrate
risk of
different
transmission
things.
from that.
So
Now,
hopefully,
the
if you
CDC
guys
and
need
the
that,
AVMA,
we'll
the
certainly
American
make that
Veterinary
available to
Medical
you. But there's going to be a
Association,
lot
have
more
both weighed in
information
on
than what we
this.
covered today.
And right now, we have
in that
no reason
handbook.
to believe that animals can pass the virus.
Can you
to
guys? And
humans,
I just want to check. You guys can hear me, yes?
through actually
Okay.
like
See Andrea
like
shaking her
pass it
head.
between
Yes, yes.
humans,
Oh, good.
right?
Okay.
So
I'm glad
if
that
an
the buttons are
animal
working.
is infected with
Okay,
the
so
virus,
let's see.
right now there's no
Site.
reason to believe that the animals
We
could
have
then pass that
15
virus to
participants
humans.
now.
So another very good piece
Do
of
we
news.
think that anyone
Um,
else still
to
needs
be
to get in?
150%
or Megan?
transparent, they're not saying absolutely it's not possible, but as of right now, we're not worried about it. And if you consider what's going on in the world and how this is spreading amongst humans, the fact that animals are really not being infected is very good anecdotal data that would support this assumption that it's not going to be transferred from animals to humans. As well, the AVMA and the CDC are in support of this idea that fostering should be encouraged to reduce the burden on shelters and encourage social distancing. So we're able to reduce the amount of staff that we have at the shelter because animals are in foster homes.
Okay.
We're able to reduce
Megan,
the burden
I'm going to unmute you.
then falls under that reduced.
You're unmuted. Okay.
So,
So
or
thanks.
staff
I guess we're
at
just
the
gonna
shelter.
we're gonna go ahead and get
So fostering
started.
is very good, and it's very
I'm
supported
seeing
by
a
a
few
lot
more
of the
people
big organizations.
kind of trickling in, but
in very
Chris and I are trying to
limited
direct
and
people that are
extreme
calling that are
situations,
having
dogs
trouble
and cats
getting into
have
the Facebook page
contracted
and doing that.
COVID-19.
okay.
And when
all right,
I
are
say
you able to give him the
limited,
password?
I mean, there are two
I don't know if the
dogs
password
that
is
have been
working for them.
documented
If you go
globally
to
that have
Facebook and go through
contracted
the link
COVID-19,
there, that
as well
seems to
as
be working
one
for
cat.
people,
And the
even
cat
if
was
they've already
in
registered,
Hong
just
Kong.
doing it that way.
All three of
Okay.
these circumstances were in situations
Yep, I
the
see
owner
Alex.
and people in the home
Here.
had.
Do we need to make a little post on
were
Facebook,
tested
do you think?
positive for
Because I think I
COVID-19.
gave
So
Jamie
again,
the
when we're
password and that
talking
worked for
about
her
these,
to get in.
you know,
Okay.
this risk or lack
Well,
thereof.
Chris's computer just
you know,
died, so.
we're talking about it in the sense that it's when animals are coming into contact with people who
We've never
are
done this
exposed
before,
or
folks.
are
So
tested positive for COVID-19. So again, it's in those
we're in the
circumstances that
Zoom. We're in the
working
Zoom
with
world
this.
now.
But really, again, 3 cases globally have been documented.
Is there anybody
so
else?
far, and they
Megan, do you
are
see
doing some
that
testing
is not
to
here that we need to wait for?
You know, learning more about this situation. But right now, again, I'm taking comfort in that where, you know, you're looking at the spread that's going from human to
I
human,
think
and we're just not
most
seeing
of
that
the
happen
people
with,
that I knew of that
with
we had
companion
talked to are
animals.
here.
So, so
There were
you
a
know,
couple
and if
people we
anybody
talked
has
to
more
that wanted the
questions about
PowerPoint
this,
later.
you know, put them in the chat box. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
But so that's that's just kind of what we do know right now.
Maybe.
Right now, what we don't know is can animals pass the
Yeah.
virus to each other? So right now, what we're taking precautions with in the shelter is if we are going to be receiving animals that have been exposed, or we know that have potentially been exposed to COVID-19, what we're going to do is we're going to wait 14 days before we put them in foster. We're not going to be putting those animals in foster.
Okay. Well, thanks
And
everyone
we're
for
gonna be,
joining us. We'll just take one more minute before we get done, before we get started. Okay.
So
sorry about
essentially
that.
what that's going to mean is we're going to have a separate bank of kennels in the main adoption.
Nobody had
room
anywhere else to go, right?
Where animals that have been exposed to the virus potentially will be housed, and then any other animals that will that are already in the shelter will be kept separate from them. So really, really basic safety precautions, washing our hands, wearing gloves when handling those animals, things like that. Because what we also don't know is under what circumstances will dogs and cats contract the virus. So again, more information is coming out. I know they're working on these some studies right now, and we will do our best to keep the general public informed as information is becoming available. But
Okay.
as of right now, we
Okay.
know that fostering is still the best way that we have to move animals out of the shelter and to keep animals
Who's just on the phone?
safe and healthy,
Christa was just talking
safe and healthy
to
as possible. And really, the risk
Christa,
to
were you talking to my
humans,
mom?
is very, very low. So, and especially because and hopefully I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, that
well, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to let you guys
in Valley
field
County, confirmed cases in Valley
the
County.
calls
So
for people
what
who
we're
can't
hoping
get in
is
from the
that we're really not going to be seeing a lot of
and
animals that
Christa, I
have
did
been
give you that
exposed to the
password,
virus.
so that's the password. So
we're obviously
that will
preparing
work
for that,
folks.
kind of taking the mentality of prepare for the worst,
okay.
expect the best.
So
but as
let's
of
get
right
going.
now, things are looking very
There's
good.
Holly.
And,
Holly, just
and
welcome
additionally,
Holly.
what I
Thanks
will
for
say
joining
is
us.
overwhelming majority of cats and kittens that we receive during this time of year come from the field, right? So these are stray kittens that are born to feral cats in outdoors and are coming to us straight from those situations. So really, when you're talking about neonatal kittens for our program, those animals are not animals that have spent time in homes anyway. So, so the CDC and the AVMA right now really are only fall within the regular safety precautions that we already promote within the foster home. Okay. So again, I want one last little thing. The good news here is that nationally fosters have increased 770% in the last year. So that is obviously a huge growth, and this is also reflecting a 42% increase over the first week of March 2020. So we've just seen animal welfare organizations across the country have seen a huge response to our pleas for foster. So, and I think that that's represented here just with this great turnout that we've had for this online meeting today. So thanks to each and every one of you for being here and for contributing to these numbers. In total, 22,506 of approximately 204,000 dogs and cats are in foster care right now across the country. So this is huge. This is a really big deal. So again, thanks for being here. Okay, so now moving into what we're going to talk about today, which is fostering kittens. I'll go through this slide really quick. Just the purpose of the program here, again, outside of COVID-19, right? But the purpose of our program here is to provide specialized care and increase life saving amongst kittens. So I've said this before, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. Kittens, neonatal kittens, represent the most at-risk population of animals that come through our shelter. That means, and when I say that, that means that they're the most likely to not make it. They're the most likely to die. And that sounds very harsh to say, but frankly, it's the reality that we face with these tiny kittens. So by putting them in foster homes, we are able to increase their survival rate considerably. The foster kitten program reduces stress on our staff, on the volunteers that are coming into the shelter, and on our shelter resources. So kittens, not only are they the most at risk, but they're also the most, they use up our resources the most intensely. And they really do need such specialized care that it's almost impossible to provide that in a shelter environment. So getting them into foster homes is huge. And obviously by keeping them alive, we are definitely improving their overall health and well-being. So this is just, it's a great program. There's just no downside to it, in my opinion. Okay, so Megan, do you want to go through this?
Sure. So neonatal kittens are basically any kitten that is under about 8 weeks old, from first born to then. Kittens do have to be 2 pounds to be spayed, neutered, made available for adoption. So these guys are not able to be adopted out into homes yet. Kittens also can't be vaccinated until they're a pound. So usually these guys also can't be vaccinated yet. So they need that specialized care to make sure they don't get sick, and also help treat that. Since these guys are so little, they're usually more susceptible to these illnesses as well. So need specialized care in that sense. Getting them out of the shelter decreases the risk of them catching like an upper respiratory infection, those kinds of things.
Okay. So as far as supplies that you need for fostering kittens, the shelter will provide you with pretty much anything that you need. That said, if you are some of our, you know, there's some of you who are here today, some of those diehard folks that are fostering kittens for us for the whole season. You know, I am definitely one of those people. Megan is definitely one of those people. There's a few more of you on here that are like that. So if you wanted to invest in Alex, I see you. You're definitely one of those people. So if you are one of those folks who, you know, some people like if you have never fostered kittens before, it is, I find, one of the most gratifying things, because you get to see these tiny babies grow and survive and thrive, and then you get to see them have their surgeries and go into final adoptive homes, and it's just such a lovely process. There's definitely downsides to it, but for the most part, it's lovely. So it's easy to get hooked, is what I'm saying. So if you wanted to go ahead and get some of the supplies for fostering kittens that you on your own, we always welcome that, and we will always help you pick out different things that you need. There's not a huge investment that you need to do to get the stuff that, to foster, and frankly, a lot of the stuff that I got from our thrift store for very, very cheap. So I'll go through a few of the things that you're going to need. These are just kind of the definite things that you will absolutely need to foster kittens. And again, if you need them from the shelter, we'll provide them. But if you want to get them yourselves, we also really support that. So first of all, you need a notebook and a feeding sheet. I apologize, I don't think I have one here with me. Maybe I do. I don't. So that was the one thing that I don't have. But essentially what a feeding sheet is you need a place to write down how much the kitten weighs and how much they eat, because you are not going to remember it. And we're going to go through this, and I'm going to hammer this in through the next, I think, basically every single slide, moving through the rest of this presentation. But you need to be taking notes about your kittens, essentially. So you need a notebook. You're going to need a scale. So I think of some of you, if you can see me in the little window above, you're going to need, this is like a little electronic kitchen scale. You need that because we're going to ask you to weigh your kittens, because that's a big indicator of how we know the kitten is healthy. You're obviously going to need food. We're happy to provide the food. Depending on what kind of kitten, it's a different kind of food. You'll need bottles and nipples and syringes and shallow feeding dishes. So we use these little syringes sometimes to feed kittens. We use these bottles a lot to feed we use these bottles to feed the bottle babies. This is a special nipple that we use. It's called a miracle nipple. These things they're lifesavers. They're amazing. So we provide those for you if you're going to foster bottle babies for us. You're going to need a crate or some kind of an enclosure. I foster little tiny bottle babies, and I literally just use a tote, because they're too little to jump out of it, and I can sanitize it really easily between litters. So I just use a plastic tote, and it works great. You need blankets. You need a snuggle disc, because as we'll go through, kittens can't regulate their body temperature. This is a snuggle disc. Can you guys see me? Hopefully. So this is it heats up in the microwave. It's amazing. You need litter box and non-clumping litter. You need baby wipes and tissues, cleaning supplies, which we will provide to you. We use a type of cleaning solution. You need Caro syrup and a syringe for our feeding kitten protocol, which we'll go through later. And then you're going to need any kind of specialized supplies, which you'll work out with foster staff. Sometimes kittens need special kinds of care depending on what they've got going on. So we'll provide you with those specialized kinds of things, okay? All right, next slide. So the types of foster kittens. So you can, when you're going to foster for us, you can essentially choose the different type of kitten that you want to take. Some people will just take any kind of kitten. Some people will only want to take the kittens that are already eating on their own. For me, what I typically foster are the bottle baby kittens. So these are the kittens that are pictured here. They're typically, kittens will start to wean at, I want to say, like maybe around the 3-week mark. It just really depends on the individual kitten. But up until the point that they're weaning, they will be eating predominantly through a bottle and a nipple, if you're lucky. Sometimes those tiny babies have a hard time and figuring out how to nurse. And so then we will be using a syringe to be feeding. And if it's really, really bad and they're really having a struggle, they might be sick, they might need really specialized care, we will then use a tube, a feeding tube to feed them. We won't ask you to use a feeding tube unless you are comfortable being taught how to use a feeding tube. It's actually pretty easy once you get the hang of it, but it's quite intimidating also. And there is a way to really mess it up. So, so we will not ask you to do that until you're ready and we feel like you're ready for that, but that is a possibility. For these bottle babies, they're obviously, for these reasons, they are the most fragile. They are some of the most susceptible to fading kitten syndrome, which is what FKS is. They really do need 24-hour care and feeding. In the very, very early stages, especially when we first get the kittens and they're figuring out the feeding routine, they need to be fed every 2 hours. So that means waking up in the middle of the night with them and feeding them every 2 hours. Now, I will say that once they get to be like a week old or 2 weeks old, it gets to be where you can feed them, you can go a little bit longer. So sometimes, like, especially if you're feeding them very, very regularly throughout the day, like every 2 hours throughout the day, and they're eating great, for me, I will then move once they're a little bit more stable, I will move to more of a 6-hour feeding schedule overnight. So I can maybe get up just one time. in the night versus like 4 times. So, and again, please don't let this deter you. Like, we will not ask you to do this until you're ready for it, and you can choose what kind of kittens you want. But that this is the reality when it comes to fostering bottle babies. These kittens also will need to be stimulated for elimination. So that means that you kind of have to use a little soft cloth or tissue or wet wipe to stimulate their genitals to make them go pee and poop. It's not the most glamorous thing about fostering kittens, but it's part of what we have to do, and really you get used to it. So, so yeah, it's really not the biggest deal. Trust me. I mean, sometimes it's gross. Some people are just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And cool. You guys can have kittens that are using the litter box on their own. That's totally fine. For me, and I'm so used to it, it just doesn't bother me anymore. The next type of kitten will be the weaning or the gruel kittens. If you wanted to, you might call these kittens weaners. I don't know. I mean, I think it's funny, but if you don't have to call them wieners if you don't want to. But I don't know. You find humor when you can, right? So they can also be quite fragile. Their weight and their feeding continues to need a lot of attention. They're figuring out how to eat on their own. They might still want the bottle. You know, you really, it's like you can tell when these kittens are, it can be frustrating because they're very, very hungry, you can tell, but they don't understand how to get the food into their mouth. So, you know, sometimes they decide to swim in it. That's cool. You know, like it's all part of like learning them learning how to eat, right? So they can be, they can be messy. I would say these guys can be the messiest of all the kittens. And they're also in the process of learning a litter box. So they might need to be stimulated still at each feeding. You might need to be supplementally feeding them with a bottle, but they should have a litter box at this point available to them in their enclosure so that they can be starting to figure that out. Because quite frankly, kittens are really good at this. They tend to just figure out, like if you have a little litter box in there for them, they really just tend to do it on their own. So it's pretty amazing, actually. Okay, kitten. Megan, do you want to do you want to do these types of kittens?
Yeah. So kittens that are on pate and transitioning to just solid food and kibble. You're usually eating on their own, already using the litter box. Still need to be weighing in every single day so that we can still keep track and make sure that everyone is gaining weight as they should be. At that point, those guys that are on the pate and kibble should have, like, be able to have their first vaccinations on, that kind of stuff. It is best to keep kittens and cats that you're fostering separate from your own, especially those young susceptible kittens that are not vaccinated yet. The kittens on the pate and kibble, they're the ones that are about like that 6 to 8 week range in my head that are super mobile and super rambunctious and a lot of fun. If you're like those guys, they're the ones that I like to, when they get to that age, that's when I transition them to a different foster because I like the little teeny bottle babies the most. And then another one, so last year we saw a much larger amount of pregnant moms coming into the shelter. And these guys, it's best if we can get them into foster homes as well. I took one of the pregnant moms home. That picture is actually a pregnant mom with her babies on my couch. They do need to be kept separate. Mama cats are kind of like mama dogs as well, can be a little defensive of their babies with other animals. Need to still be observed, socializing kittens, weighing the kittens, make sure they're gaining weight. But I will say these pregnant moms with the babies are so easy. And when I had these guys compared to when I had orphan kittens and things like that, she does everything. She feeds them, she stimulates them, she cleans them. They gained weight a lot faster. Like they were just much, you know, as much as we do, they're just healthier than when I had just orphan babies myself. And it was super interesting too to get to watch all of that. And it was just, I just kind of got to sit there and observe and watch what was going on. And I didn't have to put in as much time basically. So it was really, really easy and super, super rewarding to take in that mama cat and her babies. Yeah, definitely need a separate space with them. I just had them out in my house, so I kind of went against that, and they were with my dog, but she liked my dog, so it was okay. But yeah, these guys are, I feel like the pate kibble ones are the ones that most of our fosters do end up getting at certain points, especially if you're starting out. They're kind of the ones that you start with. It's a nice, easy transition into getting started, learning how to weigh them, see what kind of food they're eating, that kind of stuff, to get you going.
What are you doing? It's a visitor.
Yeah, I agree, Megan. I think that basically this whole training and information session, this what we're doing here is essentially us figuring out how we can mimic what the mom does for these babies. So that is a really, really great, if you've never fostered kittens before, a really, really great place to start would be with a pregnant mom, I think, because you get to see exactly what's going on there. Or with, sometimes we get moms that already have had their babies, or they have their babies at the shelter, things like that. But I think that that is a really great place to start. But otherwise, yes, that pate kibble stage for folks is another a really great place. But just because the kittens are quite a bit more self-sufficient. But again, and I'm going to reiterate this too, these kittens, even when they are at the pate kibble stage, they really probably have only had 1 or 2 vaccinations on board, and we go through a series of them, a series of vaccinations with them before they really gain their full immunity. So it is super important for them to be kept separate from your own cats, just because it's sometimes the kittens could potentially have something that you don't want to pass to your at-home cats, but more than likely your pet cats that you have at home are going to be fully vaccinated, and so they are much, much more likely to then pass something back to the new kittens that you have that have not been able to build up those immunities yet that they receive through vaccination. So really, I think the risk to your own pets at home, your cats in particular, because cats and dogs really don't pass things back and forth from to each other that we worry about. But the risk to your own cats at home is really, really low, because they are going to be adult, healthy, fully vaccinated kitties. So really, you want to be keeping the foster kittens separate from those cats. And maybe you do have like an older kitty that could have a compromised immune system, things like that, and you definitely want to be keeping them separate from your cats anyway. Taking really easy precautions like washing your hands in between handling the cats and your foster kittens, and then going back out and handling your own pets, things like that. Using a towel when you're feeding or playing with the kitties, so that they're not like, there's no germs getting on your clothes. A lot of this stuff is sounding really familiar to all of you right now, because we're dealing, like, the washing the hand thing is so important to all of us right now. So really just some really simple precautions can help keep everybody very, very safe. And the risk is actually quite low. Okay, so the next thing to remember when we're talking about kittens is that essentially until those kittens get to that 6 to 8 week age range, they really are unable to regulate their own body temperature. So I did mention already that one of the supplies that you're going to need is the snuggle disc. And that is because you need those heat sources, because it is so important to keep these kittens warm. Their body temperature needs to be normally between 102 to 104 degrees. So essentially what that's going to mean is that unless, especially when they're quite young, anywhere between the two, like from newborn to, really up until 6 weeks old, they need an extra source of heat for them in their enclosure or kennel. So again, like these snuggle disc things this is what we use. This is what we really want everyone to be using. Something to remember too, if you have a kitten that is cold, your body temperature is simply not warm enough to keep them warm. So if you have a kitten that you feel like has gotten cold, a lot of times people will like put them in their little sweatshirt or whatever, because their body temp needs to be upwards of 102 degrees. Our body temperature is never going to be warm enough to keep them warm. So really best bet is if you have a cold kitten, you need to get them onto that heat source immediately. And again, we recommend the snuggle disc, but you know, just because it's the best option, right? So again, there's a picture there. Again, that's what I have here. You microwave it for 45 minutes, and no joke, it stays warm all night long. All night long, it'll stay warm. So that is why we really like these. They don't get cold in the middle of the night, and then you end up, there's nothing worse than waking up in the morning with cold kittens. When you're using these, what you really want to make sure is that you don't overheat them in the microwave. Apparently they can explode in the microwave in certain circumstances. We had that happen at the shelter once. I think it was a very old snuggle disc that had been heated a million times, and I don't know, Christa probably did it on purpose or something, so it's her fault. But anyway, like for the most part, these like really are, you don't want to overheat them. You don't want to get them to be too hot, but 4 to 5 minutes, depending on your microwave, is going to work just fine. They come with these little covers. So if we have one, we'll send it with you. This would be a really great thing if you wanted to invest in one for yourself. If you're going to foster a lot, they can be sanitized. You can put it through the, I mean, you just wash them in the sink. They cost about, what, like 25, 30 bucks, I think, on Amazon. And we lose these all the time. So if you can find one for yourself and write your name on it in big magic marker, then this would be one of the main things I would encourage you to get. But yeah, otherwise they come with this little cover. These get lost a lot. So if you don't have one of the covers, just use like a towel or, you know, and actually use a thin towel to cover it, because what I see a lot is that we put these in a carrier with kittens and we bury it underneath like a bunch of blankets, and the kittens are not getting the warmth that's coming from the disc. So you really don't need, like, if you can tell, you guys can see me, you can tell like these little covers are quite thin. So like, it's just a little fleece thing. And so really you want them to be able to feel the warmth. Again, like remember, their body temperature needs to be 102 to 104 degrees. So you don't want them to not be able to feel the heat from this. But that said, you never want to put them on a heat source, including the Snuggle Safe, without a cover over it. And you definitely want to make sure it's not too hot. And you never, never, never want to put kittens down on a heat source that they are not able to then move away from. Even the tiny babies, like 1, 2, 3 day old babies, will be able to scoot themselves away from a heat source if they feel too hot. Okay, so so that's a really important thing. So you just want to have a little bit of space in whatever enclosure you have for your kittens, that they can then get away from the heat source if they need to. Because even though as much as we stress keeping them warm, you can overheat them too.
Thanks, Kim. Bye.
Okay. So other heat sources, you can use a heating pad. You can use a rice sock, which I have one here. So that's kind of what this is. People use them for for themselves too. It's just like, you know, you can just use a regular sock and put rice in it, and then you can microwave it and it will stay warm for like maybe an hour. But again, just use it. This is better. So just use these. The heating pads always have like automatic turn-offs, and sometimes the heating pads can get too hot, and so again, just use the Snuggle disc. They're better. And if you can't get one yourself, we have a lot of these at the shelter, so we'll share. Okay. This, I think, aside from keeping the kittens warm, and keeping the kittens fed, are two of the most important things when you're dealing with foster kittens. So, and this whole idea of feeding kittens, it really, really, it just is, it all is based on this principle of weigh, feed, weigh, right? So what you're going to do is, first of all, when you're going to feed your kittens, and especially if and we're really talking about kittens that are less than 6 weeks old here, right? So if you're going to feed your kittens, you have to make sure that they're warm. You can, if you feed a cold kitten, first of all, what they're probably going to do is they're going to probably aspirate it and take the cat. They're not warm enough to even be swallowing. So they're going to take that, whatever food you give them, into their lungs, and they're going to aspirate, and they could choke to death, and or they could develop pneumonia down the road. So really, again, you've got to make sure that a kitten is warm before you weigh them. And a super, super good way to make sure that the kitten is warm is to actually put your finger in their mouth. So, and if your finger in their mouth and you feel their tongue, or you feel that their mouth is cold, then you know that your kitten is cold, and the first thing you've got to do is warm them up. Don't do anything else but just warm them up. Also, never feed cow's milk or any other kind of milk. You're only ever going to want to feed, when you're talking about a bottle baby, you're only ever going to want to feed the kitten milk replacer formula, which we will provide to you. So each feeding for kittens that are under 6 weeks, you know, really any kitten, even under 8 weeks old, each feeding they should be eating at least 5 grams of food per 100 gram of body weight, right? So that sounds pretty precise? That's because it is. And this is particularly the ratio that they need to be eating so that they can be gaining weight. Every single time you feed a kitten, they should gain weight, right? And that is why, again, these digital scales are so important. And again, we have these at the shelter. We will let you borrow them for fostering. But again, if you wanted to invest in your own fostering supplies, I would say the digital scale is another thing in addition to the snuggle disc that I would recommend investing in. Even it's not even that much of an investment. They're like between 10 and
no, leave it.
so really it's no big deal. So but again, if you can't do that, please don't worry about it. We'll give you one. But the
Know you're bored.
scale is, in my mind, scale is non-negotiable, and the weigh, feed, weight is non-negotiable. Even if you are fostering kittens that are a little bit older, even if they're upwards of like 6, 7, 8 weeks old, you're not going to need to weigh them every single time you feed them. But what you are going to need to weigh them is on a daily basis, and maybe even a weekly basis, because the first indicator of a problem with a kitten, even before they have any other kinds of symptoms, will be weight loss. And the first time you call any of the staff with a problem with one of your kittens, they're going to ask you,
no, leave it.
Right?
Yes,
So, so that is super, super important. Hang on 1 second. I just need to, okay. Okay, sorry. Yes, so again, the weigh, feed, weighed, the weigh, feed, weigh is just, I can't even stress this enough, like this principle. So what you're going to do is and this is super, super important for, first of all, for bottle babies, and second of all, for those syringe weaner babies, because what you're going to do is you're going to weigh your kitten first. You're going to take down their weight in grams. You're going to write that down on your feeding sheet, which has little, I'm so bummed that I don't have an example of that right now, but yeah, I just don't have an example. I'm sorry. And you don't even need a feeding sheet. All you need is, Megan, do you have a feeding sheet right there?
Not with me. I think I have some though in the drawer somewhere. I'll look.
Okay, don't worry about it. Because really, I don't want to get caught up. I shouldn't get caught up on the feeding sheet thing, because really all you need is a piece of paper to write things down. Because what you need to do is you're going to write down the date, you're going to write down the time, you're going to write down the name of the kitten, you're going to write down what they weighed before you fed them, so at the beginning, and then you're going to weigh them after you're done feeding them, and then you're going to write down how much you've actually fed them in grams. Okay, Megan, do you have it?
Yeah.
And maybe we can, so everything's really tiny, I know right now. So maybe I
kind
can
of see my screen.
Huh?
So if you can kind of see my screen, this is an example, but really, like, I just use a notepad at home
Yeah.
and keep track of everything myself that way. But it has
Also
on
the
here.
feeding chart after the fact, and there's an example of the feeding chart in the kitten handbook, the foster handbook. So if you want to look more, but you're never, the thing about writing it down is that you're never going to remember. You're never going to remember, even if you think you're going to weigh the kitten and you're going to feed it and then you're going to weigh it again, you're going to go back to write down what they weighed to begin with, and you're not going to remember. Trust me. Especially, you're especially not going to remember if it's 2 a.m. So, and really the whole principle behind this weigh, feed, weigh is you weigh the kitten first, and then you feed the kitten, and then you weigh them again. You can subtract those 2 weights, and you're going to know exactly how much that kitten ate. And it really does take the guesswork out of understanding how much they ate. And really, you're going to be able to know exactly. You're going to be able to know that they ate enough food at that feeding to gain weight. And so for bottle babies, they need to be eating every 2 to 4 hours. For those syringe weaner babies, they need to be eating every 4 to 6 hours. And so every single feeding, you're going to come through and you're going to make sure that they were eating 5 grams of food for 100 grams of body weight. And we also, in addition to the feeding chart, we also have to the feeding chart, we also do have a another chart that will show you if your kitten weighs this many grams, they need to eat this much food, and that's also in the foster handbook. So it's just, and especially like when you're dealing with the kittens that want to be swimming in their food, wearing the food is not the same as eating the food. And it can be when they are literally covered from head to toe in kitten pate, it's so hard to know exactly how much they're getting in their mouth and how much they're eating. And it can look like they're eating when they're really, really not. So you've just got to weigh the kittens. You've got to weigh the kittens, and you've got to keep those records. That is one of the biggest responsibilities that we all have when we are fostering kittens, okay? And again, if you're fostering those a little bit older kittens, really you're gonna be doing, depending on what you've been communicating with the shelter staff, because again, every kitten is different. It could be much better. It could be you're gonna weigh them every day. Like every morning you're gonna weigh your kittens and keep them individually, and you're gonna keep those weights individually. And somebody likely will call you and be asking you to report those weights. That'll either be Megan or Alex, who is our new shelter medicine program coordinator at the shelter. So, because we want to be knowing and making sure that all those kittens are gaining weight. Really, I mentioned this already, but one of the first indicators that we have that a kitten is not doing well is if they stop eating. And you're not going to know that they've stopped eating and that they've lost weight until they've lost quite a bit of weight. And whereas if you're weighing them regularly, you're going to be able to see this kitten A has lost 10 grams since yesterday, or simply they have not gained weight in 3 days. So that will tell us something, like they're maintaining weight, but they're not gaining weight, versus if they're gaining weight or if they're losing weight. So really I'm going to stop talking about it now, but hopefully I've emphasized it enough to make you all understand how important it is. Okay. Okay, so for bottle babies, they will only be eating KMR, which is kitten milk replacer formula. It has got to be warm and it has got to be mixed up well, because what you don't want to have is clumps coming out of your, like these little bottles. Like you can see the little hole. I don't know if you guys can really see how little those holes are, but what will happen is if it's not mixed well, it'll get clumpy, and then, you know, the kitten will then the clump will suddenly go through the nipple, and the kitten will have get a bunch of milk into their mouth, and then they can potentially aspirate. So that is not good. These blender bottles that people use for their protein smoothies and what have you are the best thing that we have found to mix up the KMR so that it's not lumpy, because I don't know if there's moms here. I don't know if baby formula is the same way, but the freaking KMR, like you cannot get it to not be lumpy unless you use these, and has these little mixer things that go in there. So this works great. We have these. You can get these. A lot of people will have these just at home anyway, or again, these are like $10. You can buy them on Amazon. Super easy. When you mix the KMR, you mix it by and I don't have a jar of KMR here with me, but it comes in a powder form. Obviously, that's why you have to mix it. And you need to mix it 2 to 1 with water. If you're given a super, super young bottle baby, we might ask you to mix it at a different kind of a ratio that is a little bit more water, just so that it's not as strong. And in the beginning, it might help. We found that sometimes that can help with reducing digestive upset for babies who are not used to KMR yet, and potentially that can lead to some diarrhea and vomiting. So, but again, we will make sure that you are ready for those kinds of things. And if we want you to mix it differently, we're going to let you know. The KMR needs to be stored in the refrigerator, and it should not be stored longer than 24 hours. We have found that a lot of issues with diarrhea, vomiting, different things like that for the kittens can come about when the formula is not being mixed and not being stored properly. So really fresh formula is very, very important, and really you should only be mixing a small amount at a time, because sometimes these babies will only be eating as small as 10, 20 grams at a feeding. So really you don't need a ton to be mixed up at once. The other thing that's really, really important is that these bottles and nipples have to be cleaned in between every feeding. The formula has a lot of fat in it. And so if you're just rinsing the stuff out, I even have one that I noticed is bad. Like you can kind of see this formula, I don't know, maybe you can. This formula has like some residue that's on the inside, or this bottle has residue from formula on the inside because I didn't clean it well enough. So I need to throw this away essentially. The nipple probably is still good, but the bottle, like that can just have bacteria in it, and it can lead to diarrhea with kittens. And if you're dealing with bottle babies, you know that diarrhea can be very, very bad for them. It can lead to dehydration and can really induce fading pretty easily. So we want to make sure that they don't have diarrhea. The bottle kits that we use come with these little brushes, and you really should be using these brushes. That's really the only way to be getting out and cleaning the inside of these bottles. Okay. Okay, Meg, do you want to go through the wiener babies?
Sure.
I'm not ashamed.
So these guys really want to emphasize that typically what we see a lot of too is when bottle babies are transitioning and in this weaning period, it is a super fragile time for them. It will get them kind of going and get them started on a gruel mixture, things like that, and they get into a foster, or they just stop eating and aren't eating enough, and we see their weights dip or different things like that. So again, stressing the importance of weigh, feed, weigh that Amber talked about, even when they're at this age, even if they're eating the gruel on their own, need to be doing that so that we can see if they're getting enough, and make sure that if they do start dropping or they're just sustaining over a few days, that we're able to get on that and get that taken care of and make sure that they're getting the food that they need. With the gruel, we usually do a mixture of pate and water. 2 to 1, about the same with the KMR a lot of the time, I feel like, or I've even done 1 to 1 with them when they get a little bit older, if they still have to have it blended. I blend up the gruel in an actual blender because it actually makes it's able to go through the syringe if I need to, and it's a lot easier to do that way, and you don't get the little chunks of pate and things like that in the syringe that block it up, and do the same thing as the bottle if the KMR is clumpy. Learning to eat on their own. Some of them you'll notice you'll be able to just add a little bit of water to pate, kind of mush it up with a fork, and some of them will just start eating it right away. Other ones will not. Other ones you will kind of have to force feed with the syringe and make sure that they're getting the food that they need. We also wanted to kind of emphasize at this time what we're going to really try and do, especially with these gruel babies and the guys on pate, is we want to make sure that they're getting a consistent type of food. So whatever brand you're using or things like that of the pate, we want to try and keep them on that exact same type of food to help limit the diarrhea and the upset stomachs, because we have noticed that when you have them on one thing and they come back to the shelter, for example, and get changed to something else, the diarrhea does tend to get pretty bad and can do that pretty quickly. And then we get them switched back to whatever food they were on and they go back to being okay. So we want to try and start keeping track of that more. And again, whenever they're able to start eating on their own too, you always need to have water present, like just a bowl of water that they're able to access on their own. We've seen kittens in the past to get dehydrated because of this, where they start eating on pate on their own, or they are getting syringe fed, but there isn't water in the kennel present and they're not drinking because they don't have anything there. So that is something too that definitely needs to be done at this point. There always needs to have a water bowl present for these guys. With the syringe feeding, if they're not eating on their own, as you've seen in a couple of the slides, it does get pretty messy. I always put like a towel or puppy pads down or something along those lines with them. And it's really similar to the bottle feeding. You kind of go in, you can see in the picture, we go kind of towards the side of the mouth. Just do really, really slow, gradual. You'll see them start slurping it up and eating it and that kind of thing if they haven't figured out how to do it on their own yet. And it's time consuming. It's something that does take a lot of time to do right and make sure that they get that amount in. But usually that only lasts a little bit of time, and if you're able to get them eating on their own. And the syringe is really just supposed to be kind of supplemental to make sure that they do get the amounts that they need. Sorry, Nova's whining in the background.
Okay. Thanks, Megan. I would say, just to add to what she was saying, again, like I know we're going to talk about weigh, feed, weigh again, but these kittens almost might be more important than any of the other kittens, just because when you're weaning, like if you can look at that picture there, they're literally will be wearing, you'll waste more food when you're going and you're doing this, when you're weaning a kitten. You'll waste more food from them just like spitting it out or turning their head, or, you know, it takes some time to get used to like using one of these syringes to really like inject the food into the kitten's mouth. And they can fight you over it. I mean, this technically is force feeding, and really hopefully what will happen is they're going to get that food into their mouth and they're going to be like, oh, yum, I like this. And they're going to pick it up right away. And a lot of times they will. Sometimes they won't. And so again, that is why the weigh, feed, weigh is going to be the only way that you can really understand how much the kitten is actually eating and if they're getting the right amount of food. Okay, I love this picture. So again, syringe feeding, talking more about syringe feeding the gruel babies. Megan mentioned blending, and I have this blender here. It's like just a small little random blender. Literally got it at our thrift store, the McPaws thrift store downtown, for like $3 or something. And this is, you really need it if you're going to be using a syringe to be doing the syringe feeding. It won't work unless the food is smooth. So you just kind of have to. And you can find a consistency that will work for the kittens. What you don't want to make sure you're doing is make sure you're not adding too much water, because you want the kittens to be getting the adequate amount of calories and nutrients through the food. We do not mix KMR into the gruel that we make, and just because there's a lot of waste when it comes to syringe feeding, and KMR is super, super expensive. It also tends to turn into concrete when it dries, the KMR does. So it's really, really hard to keep the kittens clean when you're mixing KMR into the gruel. Now that said, I have this little note here, except sometimes. So I do think that there are instances where you might have a cat or a kitten that just won't eat and is losing weight. In those circumstances, we try anything. We'll try different kinds of food. We'll try mixing the KMR in. You want to try different like temperatures for the food, because like literally some kittens will only eat the food if it's like a certain temperature and if it gets a couple degrees colder, they're not going to eat it. You really just, it's a little bit of a trial and error thing depending on the kittens you have. And the more you do it, the better at it you're going to get. You really want to be watching, like Megan said, like using the corner of the mouth. Watch for them to be swallowing, because you can kind of see sometimes it'll just like be running out the sides of their mouth. Not the greatest. So watch for that. And when you're talking about blending up the syringe food, you know, which is just, and I don't know if we mentioned this, it's just pate, cat food. Hopefully it's some kind of kitten blend of wet food and water, and you're blending it together. I like these little paper cups a lot because you can put these in the microwave versus like using something like this, like shallow dish. That you can't microwave this. So, and it tends to get cold, colder faster. So I like these little cups. We have a bunch of these. So if you wanted to try this out, that's exactly what that cat is wearing on his face right now. Fun. And really you might, when we're talking about syringe feeding, if you are fostering bottle babies, you might have to do this for the bottle babies as well. Hopefully not, but you might have to do that, and we'll walk you through that. So troubleshooting, Megan, do you want to go through troubleshooting?
Sure. So troubleshooting, again, the weaning period and getting them to start eating on their own and stuff can be hard to get them to start understanding what they're doing, basically. Like in the picture, you can see that they're kind of exploring the food and probably not really eating it. So different ways to potentially try and help with this. First one is using a plate like in the picture, where you have like a shallow little plate, even a paper plate works, and just have it kind of spread out in there. Because what you'll see too is they'll kind of explore it like that, and they do get it on their paws, and then they'll groom themselves and lick it off of them and start kind of realizing it in that sense. And sometimes that helps in just having quicker access to it. Other ways, also getting them calmed down a little bit before feeding can help too. Using a toothbrush and kind of brushing them with that is comparable to the mother's tongue, like cleaning them, and can calm them down as well. Or using a burrito, where you take the kitten and wrap it up in like a little towel or blanket and make a cute little kitten burrito. Sometimes that calms them down. Also just kind of keeps them in one spot if you are having to try and syringe feed them, things like that. They can't fight you as hard. Temperature of the food too. Amber kind of said something about it in the last slide as well. Some kittens are super, super picky about the temperature of the food. If it's too cold, they won't eat it. Some of them, it has to be a very specific temperature. Also, if it's too hot, you'll notice, because it'll kind of burn their mouth. They'll start eating it and be like, ugh, and bounce back and be like, this is too hot for me. Making sure that you're giving good breaks in between. I've been guilty of this before, where I just try to feed them too often and then worry that they're not eating enough, when in reality they just weren't hungry yet again and didn't want food yet. So that, making sure that they get that good decent break in between, changing their position, trying different places to have them in. Some kittens, I've had kittens that, you know, like to syringe feed and do that kind of stuff in the same position that they bottle feed. Others that don't want you touching them at all when they're eating, different things like that. Hand feeding is a big one that I think we've all had some success with in the past. Had kittens that I could not get them to eat on their own unless I took the pate myself and had it in my hand on my fingertips and got them to eat it that way. They would not eat out of a dish. They wouldn't eat from a plate. But if I held it in my hand and held the kitten and had them eat it that way, they began eating on their own. You'll also get kittens in litters that sometimes one of the biggest kittens won't allow the littlest ones to eat, and can kind of do a little bit of the resource guarding that you see more often in dogs than cats. But so feeding them separately, taking kittens from those litters apart, giving them all their own individual food, making sure that everyone's eating that way so they're not competing over anything, is a really, really good way to make sure that everyone is getting the amount of food that they need. Again, even during this time, you might have to provide supplemental feeding to ensure they're getting enough. So doing the weigh, feed, weigh after they weigh them, let them eat on their own if they're at that point, weigh them again. And if they're not eating enough on their own, doing the supplemental feeding with a syringe to get them to the point that they're supposed to be. So say they're supposed to eat 15 grams, they eat on their own and get to about 10 and aren't willing to eat any more by themselves. You can do supplemental feeding with a syringe with the last 5 grams or whatever it may be to get them to the point that they're supposed to be at that point. Again, emphasizing the weigh, feed, weigh, making sure that they are eating that much, because if a lot of time when they start eating on their own, especially in the very beginning, they're not eating enough when it's just left to their own devices.
We just want you to get the food in the body as whatever, in whatever way possible, essentially. So that's what we should also name this food. Okay, so so that's that. So then moving into kittens that are on solid food, this is going to be the pate, which is just the smooth wet food, or kibble. They're typically going to be eating with no assistance. These guys are pretty easy. You still might need to separate the kittens from each other while they're eating, because you will notice that there's, again, sometimes there'll be a little runt in the litter, or that is getting pushed out, outcompeted or getting pushed out with the food. So sometimes you can if you have a litter of 4, you might be able to pull one out and just let them eat separately. But again, you're not going to know that unless you're weighing them. And when they're on the solid food, it's very likely that you're just going to need to be weighing them either daily or maybe even weekly. So you're just going to want to communicate with a staff member about that and how often we need you to be weighing them. But kittens this age can still fade. Kittens this age can still have problems. And so again, being on top of how much they weigh and if they're gaining weight or not is going to be the best way we can prevent those problems. So that's this urination and defecation. This is a special part of kitten fostering, and again, not the cutest aspect, but very important. This typically only deals with the tiny bottle babies, but really essentially you're dealing with stimulation of the genitals, so to make them go to the bathroom. Because if you were to foster a mama with babies, what you would notice is the mom uses her tongue to stimulate the kittens and for them to go to the bathroom. Puppies and adult dogs also, this is also how that works. So I like to use just regular baby wipes or tissues, like facial tissues for people, or toilet paper works great too. Sometimes I'll use toilet paper to do the stimulating, and then I'll use a wipe to just kind of wipe them up. Hopefully the toilet paper shortage ends soon. So, but the wipes work really great. With bottle babies, you need to be doing this at every feeding. And again, if you're going to want to start to introduce a litter box to your kittens when they get a little bit older, right around 4 weeks, you don't want to be using clumping litter at all. That's a big part of this, because if the kittens were to, they're like regular babies, human babies, they put everything in their mouths. So if they were eating that clumping litter accidentally, that could cause digestive issues or potentially an impaction. So just not regular clay, non-clumping litter, or we'll give you the what do you call it? The wood pellets that we use at the shelter. They work great for this too. Again, we're going to focus a little bit more on peeing and pooping because really when there are problems surrounding the kittens able to go potty, that will tell us a lot about their overall health. Just it's like one of those big indicators, just like the weight. So if you're seeing anything abnormal about your kitten, so diarrhea, bloody diarrhea, any kind of weird discoloration with the poop. Once they get to be a little bit older, it should get pretty consistent. If they're straining or you feel like they're constipated, those are other big issues that you really want to be cognizant of. I'm not gonna lie, kittens, diarrhea we want to know about it if a kitten has diarrhea, and we certainly want to know about it if the kitten is having chronic diarrhea, because that can lead to a lot of different problems, namely dehydration, weight loss, just general unthriftiness with the cat. So we might need to, if the cat is having chronic diarrhea, we might want to start supplemental care like subcutaneous fluids, or we might start on a probiotic. We use Benebac, which is just a powdered probiotic that we will put into their food. It works great. So there are things we can do if you're noticing that we might try different wormers. If there's a parasitic issue going on, we might need to start them on antibiotics. If there's some kind of like for example, we might see Giardia or Coccidia, that's the other one I was trying to reach for. So anyway, we want to know about the poop and just be communicative about it. For the most part, diarrhea, the kittens will have diarrhea here and there. It's most likely not going to be a problem, but again, we want to know about it. It's also pretty rare for kittens to get constipated, but we definitely have seen it, and it can have pretty dire results. So be noticing if making sure that everybody is going to the bathroom without problems, I guess. Some common health issues, and we're going to walk through these that you'll deal with these kittens, is upper respiratory infection, eye infections, diarrhea and dehydration, like I just mentioned, panleukopenia, which is essentially parvo in cats, ear mites or fleas, roundworms, tapeworms, hookworms, and ringworm, all kinds of worms. So first of all, with the upper respiratory infection, it's essentially like a common cold in kittens. The symptoms will be very similar. So congestion, wheezing, congestion in their lungs, goopy eyes, eye infections. This is not the greatest picture, but this kitten had a pretty severe upper respiratory when I started fostering him. Runny nose and sneezing that produces snot is going to be another big telltale sign of a respiratory infection that might need medication. Usually what happens with these respiratory infections is that they're caused by a virus. And so really what they need to do is run their course, and we'll offer supportive care as needed, but sometimes they can result in a secondary bacterial infection. And that is what kind of starts to produce the goopy eyes, the runny nose, the snotty nose. If your cat fostering using like really mucousy, opaque snot or bloody snot that's coming, or mucus that's coming out of their mouth or their nose, again, you want to let us know about that immediately, because it's likely that we're going to want to put them on some type of medication or antibiotics, or offer some additional supportive care. Ringworm is another thing that we see from time to time. We don't see it a ton, but we see it sometimes. You can see this kitten was one of, I foster ringworm kittens as well. So he kind of has, you can see like around his face, that bareness that he had around his eyes and around his nose. That is a very, very common sign of ringworm. So any kind of like patchiness around the face, around the ears, on their paws, on their tail. Though it's really, that's where ringworm likes to manifest on kittens. It's going to look like they're going to have hair loss. It's going to be flaky and look like dry skin. So if you start to see those things, you want to let us know right away. There's a treatment for ringworm. Something that I want to make sure that I'm very, very clear on is that ringworm is curable. Ringworm it's gross, and I think it has a really, really kind of gnarly connotations that come with it. People can get ringworm from cats that are infected with it, but again, it's treatable, it's curable. I have fostered ringworm kittens several times. I have never myself gotten ringworm. Again, like just taking like pretty pretty normal precautions. Like I separate them from my other animals, I wash my hands, or I wear gloves when I'm handling them and giving them their medication. I make sure that I wash their bedding separately. And then I clean pretty regularly with a more strong solution of the rescue cleaning solution that we use. And we mix it to a concentration that will actually kill the ringworm spores. I think there's a big push in animal welfare to kind of take the stigma away from ringworm. Again, it's not the greatest thing. We don't like it. It's not a worm, it's a fungus. And we don't see it nearly as often as they do in like the Southeast, for example, where there's like those really warm, moist conditions just are really good for the fungal infections. But we do see it from time to time. Take home is that it's treatable. I'm hopeful that we can start to get people to not be so scared of it. But that said, if you don't want to foster ringworm kittens, there is no way that you have, like, in no way will we force you to do it. There's, I know some of you might have children. We don't want you to be doing anything that you're not comfortable with. But what you do need to know is we do a check for every kitten that we do an intake on to make sure that they don't have ringworm. Sometimes it hasn't manifested yet, or maybe we didn't see it because the cat hadn't become symptomatic yet. So you want to be giving your kittens a once over and looking at them pretty regularly just to make sure that they don't have those telltale signs of like the patches of hair loss, really. But again, we see it. Sometimes we go for a whole season and we don't see it at all. So the risk of you getting kittens with ringworm is pretty low, but what we want to make sure is that you know what it is when you see it, and that you can let us know and we can take steps to remedy the situation as soon as possible. Megan, I'm going to let you handle Pan-Luke because Megan successfully treated and saved a litter of Pan-Luke kittens last year.
Yeah, so Pan-Luke, like Amber said, if you are familiar with parvo for dogs, Pan-Luke is essentially basically super similar for cats and kittens. So the symptoms that you really want to watch out for this are diarrhea with vomiting, fever, lethargy, not eating. So just like parvo, it'll be like you see them and you're like, something's not right. They don't feel good. They're not eating. Like a lot of the time too, it's like the fading kitten. They're not able to hold up their head. Just all around, not doing very well. With mine, when they broke, we actually never saw any diarrhea. We took their temperature and didn't have a fever. It was just vomiting and lethargy. But we were able to get them started on treatment super, super quickly because we were watching for that and did a snap test on them, and the one came back positive. So I was able to, with lots and lots of help from Amber and Christa, was able to get them started on all of that. So what you see in the picture there too is kind of my kitten triage that I set up in my kitchen for the whole. So treatment basically lasted about a week for them, and then it was however long after that I was still getting them back to full health later. But biggest things with Pan-Luke is watching for the diarrhea and vomiting in combination with not eating and the lethargy. And it is something that if you do see that and you suspect that is something that we need to know about as soon as possible, so we can get that treatment started super, super quickly. Because it's a virus that could very easily, if not treated, they could very easily pass from it, and very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is one of those things that the young foster kittens are going to be more susceptible to because they have not gone through their vaccinations yet. So while your foster kittens could be more susceptible to Pan-Luke, your cats at home, so long as they're up to date on their vaccinations, and are not going to be susceptible to this at all. Like the protection that the vaccines provide is excellent. So what we need to do is just keep these kittens safe and protected until they have their full range of vaccinations. And additionally, I'm going to say, just like with ringworm, we really do not see panleuk that often. We don't see parvo that often, quite frankly. So, I mean, I'm going to knock on wood there, but it's really just one of those things where we don't see it very often at all. And so I have found that for us, sometimes we can even become a little bit, sometimes we become a little bit lax about it. And I just want to make sure that, like, if any of you are seeing symptoms like this, you're going to want, those are any combination of symptoms here. Like I always say, like, if you have diarrhea one time, or if the kitten has diarrhea one time, probably not a big deal. Oh, kitten, oh, she threw up this morning. Like nothing else is happening. Probably not a big deal. But if you have diarrhea and vomiting, those are concerning. If you have diarrhea and a fever, those are concerning. Like, just like Megan was saying, any combination of these symptoms that are here is likely a sign of something else going on, whether it's panleuk or something else. So you just want to get in touch with the staff at the shelter as quickly as possible. And if you are fostering for us, we will provide you with an after hours number. So you can be calling us and we'll walk you through what you need to be doing. Okay, so again, when you're talking about illness or potential problems with your foster kittens, these are other signs or symptoms that you really want to be watching out for. Aspiration of any kind, which would be like if you're doing bottle babies, the milk coming out of the nose, that means that they've aspirated and taken that milk into their lungs. Straining to urinate or defecate. Any kind of bleeding, that's a bad sign. Just like with a human child, I imagine, any kind of bleeding, you want to know what's going on there. Abnormal twitches, walking in circles or walking into things, those are neurological symptoms that could be indicative of something that might need treatment with medication. Loss or decrease in appetite, especially when combined with steadily losing weight. Changes in attitude or behavior, including being lethargic or depressed. Head slumped in food or water bowl, those are obviously, that's a big sign that something's wrong. Any kind of unusual behavior in general, you're going to want to let us know about that. And a lot more details are on illnesses and problems for kittens are in your foster handbook. Okay, so I think we're going to go through the fading kitten protocol and then we'll turn it over for questions. So essentially, a fading kitten syndrome is, it's like nobody really knows it. Oh, I mean, I don't want to say nobody really knows. It's essentially when a kitten is just not doing well, and they, a lot of times, will just lose kittens seemingly out of the blue. And when that happens, we say, well, they just faded. And really, the symptoms of fading kitten are low body temperature. So a kitten that feels cold or cold to the touch, like a hypothermic kitten, extreme lethargy, they can't get up, they can't lift their head up, they're not responding to you at all. Things like gasping for breath or mouth breathing, meowing or crying out pretty randomly or suddenly. These are all symptoms of, first of all, fading kitten syndrome, and secondly, could be symptoms of another issue. So, but first and foremost, what you need to be treating is for these particular symptoms, like the low body temperature for one. And then the other thing that's happening here is low blood sugar. So really, any of these symptoms, if you're seeing this happening, you have got to follow the protocol that we provide, and you've got to start treatment immediately, or the kitten will likely die. Again, this is harsh language and kind of stark language, I know, but it is that big of a deal. Like, it is something that, again, we don't see it very often, but when we do see a kitten fade, it's a matter of the timing is so important that you need to start this protocol before you even call us, because if you wait and you call us first, likely it's going to be too late. So, so to go through, this is the protocol. And again, this is just the whole thing. It is in detail in the kitten foster handbook. But really, what you need to do, we know when the kitten is fading, what we think is happening is that they have a low body temperature and they have low blood sugar. So you need to treat for those things in that order. So first things first, you have to get them warm. You immediately have to get them warm. And this means you need to wrap them up in a towel. You need to put them down on a heating source right away. They need direct contact with a covered heating source. So one of those heating discs. This would be another area where you could probably use a heating pad on a low setting. They need to be completely covered, completely wrapped up. And what you want to avoid is uncovering the kitten to check on them every 5 seconds, which is what I always find myself wanting to do, because every single time you uncover them, you're re-exposing them to becoming cold. So you want to get them warmed up as quickly as possible, but you also want to do it in a gradual, very safe way so that you don't burn the kitten or overheat the kitten or, you know, put them into shock immediately. Like, you know, you want to be doing it in a gradual, safe way. So using that, using the heating disc is a really, really good way to do that, and wrapping them around the heating disc. And then I'll just keep them on my lap essentially. So, and remember again, your instinct is going to want to be to put that kitten in your jacket, to hold them against your skin, to like warm them up like that. Again, if you do that, your kitten will not get warm because your body temperature is simply not warm enough to warm them up. So you have got to use a secondary heat source. As soon as you feel like the kitten is warm, again, like be putting your little finger in their mouth, be feeling like as soon as, and a lot of times when you warm them back up, they're going to start to become a little bit more lively. Then you want to be working on raising their blood sugar. So everybody, in addition to having the scale, in addition to having the snuggle disc, the food, all the stuff that we're going to provide for you, the other thing that you're going to want to do, and this is a really good to you if you need it, but this is a really easy thing for everyone to keep at home. This is just Caro syrup, and this is like, it's kind of like empty, but it's just straight Caro syrup. And you'll need the Caro syrup, and then you're going to need a syringe. And what you're going to do is you are going to warm up Caro syrup in warm water. You want to make sure it's warm. You don't want to be putting cold anything into these kittens when they're going through this. And you want to be mixing Caro syrup with warm water. You want to take your syringe and you want to just be taking like just 1 cc, just 1 milliliter at a time, and just putting that in the kitten's mouth. It doesn't even matter if the kitten is not swallowing. They will be able to absorb some of that sugar just through their skin and through their mouth itself. The other thing you can do is take maybe some undiluted Caro syrup and just be like rubbing it on their gums. And you want to be doing this every 3 minutes, but you don't want to be waiting any longer than 3 minutes in between giving them the Caro syrup, and you don't want to be doing it any more quickly. And hopefully what you're going to be doing is you're going to be like, I've seen it happen where like you give them that sugar and they kind of just like come back to life, so to speak. And then you just want to be, once that's done, you can then give the shelter a call and we'll walk you through the next steps to take. Or once you're into the part where you're going to be giving the Caro syrup every 3 minutes, then you want to be giving us a call and and letting us know what's going on, and we're going to walk you through the rest of it. So I will not lie, fading kittens are very scary and very sad. It doesn't happen a lot. Again, it doesn't happen a lot. And again, it's going to be more likely to happen with those very teeny tiny babies. It's going to be more likely to happen with kittens that are already dealing with other illness issues. So frankly, a lot of times for those babies, we'll place them in foster homes with shelter staff because we are maybe a little bit more comfortable with doing the extra supportive care that they might need. But it still can happen to a regular healthy baby. They can go from at one point, they can just seem totally fine, and then the next minute they're crashing. And again, even if you follow this protocol, if a kitten is fading, there could be some underlying reasons why. And so it is something to either think about or prepare yourself just even a little bit of, sometimes it's going to be really hard to save these kittens when they start down this road. So it's super sad, and it's really hard to even say that, but it's the reality of fostering kittens. I think anybody who's fostering pretty regularly has lost kittens before. I don't want to sugarcoat this for anyone, and I don't want to be untransparent about this. you know, I know for certain that if we were not able to put kittens in foster homes, we would be losing way more. So the ones that we do lose, even when we're doing everything right, they're in a foster home, you're doing everything like we told you to do it, and you still lose a kitten. Likely what was going on is that there was some underlying condition that was happening with that kitten. They can have, you know, a lot of stuff can go wrong with these babies, especially when they're taken away from their moms at such a young age. And so all we can do is do our best to provide the best care that we can for them, and know that we tried, and that when we do lose those kittens, it's not for lack of trying, it's not for lack of skill, and it's much better alternative than they would have had otherwise. So I always, when I say these kinds of things, I hope I don't scare anyone away from fostering, because truly 99% of the time when you're fostering kittens, it's going to go great. And you're going to be dealing with like little problems here and there, like so-and-so won't eat, or so-and-so has diarrhea here and there, but you'll work with shelter staff and you'll fix it, and we'll help you bring those kittens around, and you're going to be able to see them get big and get adopted, and it's going to be a happy ending. But every once in a while, you know, like, this is just not how the world works, and we do have to see some sad stuff sometimes. So for me, when I think about that, I think I would much rather be in the place where I am working actively to do something about this and to care for these kittens, and to do something that I care deeply about, versus not doing anything at all because I'm worried about having a bad outcome. So yeah. Okay, so moving forward, you know, this slide is pretty, I think, self-explanatory. We will be in touch with you. We will, from the shelter side of things, we want to be able to do whatever we can to support you through your entire fostering period for us. We will be in touch with you, email, phone, text, whatever you like, to let you know when your kitten's going to be due for vaccinations, when they are going to be ready to be scheduled for spay-neuter surgery. If you need more supplies, we can get them for you. We can be helping you with weight check-ins if needed. We can be helping with medications if needed. Really, I want to make sure that we want you guys to be prepared and be able to do as much as you can at home with your kittens, but you never, ever feel like you can't call one of us and ask a question, or if you've got something going on, we would much rather hear from you than not. So it's never a bother, it's never a burden. If you want to send a text message at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can't, it's fine. You know, like, we'll try to be there, we'll try to answer those. And most likely we've all been there before. So yeah, I think that another great resource for communicating with us and with each other is using the Facebook volunteer page that we have for McPaws. I would love to see that as a way, as a place for our foster families to be touching base with each other, letting people know, like, hey, this worked great for me, or what worked well for you, and really be having a dialogue about fostering there, because we can be supporting each other. It doesn't have to come from a staff member either. So that's something that I would love to see us be taking more advantage of, really. Okay, so that's it. It's been a minute. So we have questions. If you have questions, please let us know. Hopefully, I put this picture here on this slide on purpose because it's one of my favorite adoption photos ever. I just love it. Like, we have 2 little ginger kids with their little ginger kitten, and they're so happy to be adopting him, and this kitten went through foster care. So I'm really hopeful that every single kitten that you guys foster for us will have an outcome just like this. So this is the happy ending that you can look forward to. So please ask us questions. If anybody, you want to type them into the chat box, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So if you have questions, yeah, ask in the chat box, or unmute yourself, or I'll unmute you. Could we cover anything else for you? Don't overwhelm us with your questions, everybody. Come on. Oh, thanks, Holly. You're welcome. I guess, you know, again, please ask questions. But if you wanted to know any of those supplies that that I listed there, you can find, I think I even put links to Amazon in the Kitten Fostering Handbook, which we'll make available to everyone. So if you need that, let us know. So if you want to buy supplies, you can get that through, most of them through Amazon or a lot through the pet store. And oh, thanks, Lindsay. The other, I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, and if you are not signed up already to foster, then get in touch with Megan, get in touch with Christa at the shelter. You can get the volunteer application and the foster application, I believe, on our website, www.mcpaws.org. So get involved. Oh, hi, Sikorsky. But yeah, so get involved and we would love to have you. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody so much for being with us on Sunday. Go outside, enjoy some sunshine if you can, but maintain your social distance. I hope that you're all staying safe and healthy, and thank you so much for fostering. You make such a big difference for us. So we really, really appreciate it. And don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything, okay? And we'll let you know when the kittens arrive. It's gonna be any day. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. Will you say bye? Are you confused?
Christy, Yarrow.
She's looking up at she's under the counter. She's looking up like, what's going on?
Yara, do you want to hop up? Hey, good girl. Hi. She's so confused. Oh, hi, good girl. I miss her. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later, okay? Bye,
Okay.
Jamie.
The Zoom recording, but hopefully she'll cut us off.